Chewie, we're home.
Sup guys, so, where have we been? Well,
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the return of the Sour Popcorn Podcast.
We can tell that we've had many people, thousands almost, requesting our return.
Yeah.
So back by popular demand, we had to go on a bit of a hiatus because of exams and other things.
Yep.
I feel like we've apologised a number of times for going on hiatus, but...
Yeah, school became important and very stressful in a matter of short weeks, so movies and this beautiful podcast that is loved by millions was unfortunately put on the back burner.
But now we are back. We're in our summer holidays now. We've finished our A-level exams. We're going to try and go back to weekly episodes like we did for a brief time.
Yeah.
But we're going to try and go back to weekly episodes as and when we can. And if we can't do a certain week, the week before we'll try and do another one, then have it upload when we're not available or what have you.
And you can also be guaranteed that because this is our summer holiday, when we're not uploading a podcast, we will be uploading some sort of quality content.
Yeah, be that short films, video essays, other film reviews, that sort of thing. And you can find that on our own personal channels as well as Sour Popcorn channels.
What we're going to be bringing to you in this episode is a mirage of discussion and reviews for all the big films that we promised we'd be talking about and that we promised we were going to review before we went on hiatus. We've got some big ones we're going to discuss at length, and we've got some little ones that we hope to be able to fit in and also share our thoughts on because they are worthwhile of discussion and they were all fantastic.
We did promise in the Snowy Popcorn episode that we would talk about the Doctor Who Christmas special, except there is a very Doctor Who themed episode coming up.
Yeah, and you can expect crap tons of Doctor Who content there. Quite frankly, I am embarrassed it's going to be this much. Also, just to say, we are going to be going full spoilers with all of these reviews.
Most of them have been out for a while now.
Yeah, basically all of these have been out for months now. They're all available in some format, so there's your warning.
We are going to do... For some films, we haven't seen them in a while, so we won't have as much to talk about with them. So we're going to do our big main reviews, see how long they take us, with a number of features. And then after that, we'll then do more quick fire with a number of titles saying, oh yeah, we like this, we like that, but we didn't like this about it, and what have you. But yeah, full spoilers for the upcoming films that we're going to talk about.
So, as I hand you the reins to start this discussion, you lower your hood, you stare at me as the John Williams theme just plays in symphony. And what do? You throw it over your shoulder and you ruin one of the greatest endings of the 21st century that was The Force Awakens with a cheap gag.
I liked it. I really enjoyed this film, and with that moment in particular, it sort of set the tone that they are not doing what you want. They're not doing what you expect. They're subverting what you thought you were going to get from it.
Yeah, they're talking about The Last Jedi, just to be clear, but I'm of the camp where I love this film, despite my negative tone. I love this film. It's just very hard to love it, because there are just so many points where you just think... This is, what were they thinking with Star Wars? What am I watching? And also pretty much just, what was going on in this small time that they had to fuck it up in places this badly?
I thought that, first of all, to get this out of the way, Star Wars fans are crap.
Yeah, horrible
They're
people.
Dickheads.
Yeah.
While it's great to talk to most of them about stuff that are that vocal minority, leave Rian Johnson alone. He was just making a great film. In some opinions, not a great film, but he was just trying to make a film. And same with...
Yeah, Kelly Marie Tran. It's just disgusting that people treat them like that. And at the end of the day, these are people's jobs. You've got to get up in the morning, you've got to go to work, got to try and earn for your family. And then in the case of Rian Johnson, it's his creative vision. He's got to get out of himself somehow. That's an expression of who he is. We are no one to shit on it in the respect that these people have. You can have your opinions, but at the same time, it's extremely important to respect the views of others.
At some point, I feel like some fans, myself included, don't always know what we want. Like with The Force Awakens, really enjoyed it, but it was a lot like A New Hope. And then they bounce back with something that no one was expecting. And it's like, oh, that was a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there are certain elements to this film that are strikingly Star Wars, that are some of the best moments of the entire franchise. Like, the conversation between Yoda and Luke, the Praetorian Guard fight, just the ending in itself with Luke just, like, disappearing, and it's the dual sunset. Those are strikingly Star Wars.
Oh, and through and through.
And yet there are these other scenes where it becomes a little bit clear in some people's opinion that I kind of agree with, where he wanted to do a story about the Skywalkers and about Rey. He didn't want to do about these other parts because a lot of that film is going through that casino, watching Poe and Holdo argue. I like these storylines, but this is the longest Star Wars film ever made. And when you watch it, you can see why, because of these scenes. Like, they feel filler.
Although the best scenes are with Luke. Like, apart from the Praetorian Guard scenes, the best scenes I've noticed are with Luke. And I think that some people are criticising Rian Johnson, saying that, he's clearly not a fan of Star Wars. He clearly is a fan of Star Wars. Oh, hell yeah. If he wasn't a fan of Star Wars, why would he bring Yoda back? Why would he do this, that, and the other? He is so clearly a passion project.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. You can see he is just overjoyed. The same with everyone who's working in this film. Like, Kelly Marie Tran, like, she was a fan of The Force Awakens, and you can see the second she goes into this, she's loving every single second that she's around these people. Like, that scene where she goes to Finn, it's like, oh, you're the Resistance hero. She's also like that with, oh my god, you're John Boyega from The Force Awakens. I am so happy and glad to be here. Like, none of them hate Star Wars.
I don't get why everyone hates it so much. It pays homage to pretty much every era of Star Wars. Like, it with Luke, that's the classic trilogy, the original trilogy. On the casino, it's the prequels through and through.
Yep, 100%.
Almost to a fault. But hey, we got that amazingly strange Warwick Davies thing.
Like, I think the two primary grounds for complaint for this film come out of the fact that there are things in it that just aren't Star Wars. Like, in the very opening, it's like, oh, I'm here to speak to General Hux about his mother. That's just kind of not Star Wars. You can make those kind of jokes.
That felt very J.J. Abrams-y.
And that's like, just not... And that was my problem with Force Awakens. I didn't like that was in it. That doesn't... Like, for most of the series, they've paid serious attention to...
It felt more like a Marvel film.
Yeah, it did. It felt very Marvel-y
like, a lot of bathos there.
Yeah, like... and that works in the Marvel Universe because superheroes are a ridiculous theme. They're able to play into the concept, this is a ridiculous idea. We can have a little bit of a joke about it. But with Star Wars, they've taken it seriously the entire time. So then see them make jokes like that, it becomes jarring.
Yeah.
And then with I say it again, like the filler scenes, like on the casino, the Poe and Holdo stuff. I didn't mind the Poe and Holdo stuff, but the casino, it was just so long, and it feels like really kind of just thrown in because they know they need to do something with the characters. Like, I feel if there had been another year to make this movie, like, you didn't have to pump them out every 2 years because it's what Disney says so. You could have come up with more interesting arcs. You could have developed certain scenes more. Like, the whole thing with Poe and Holdo, so many people come out with a criticism. Oh, why didn't Holdo just tell him? You can come up with the idea. You could have done so much more with that arc of, like, having Poe really come to the realization. It's like, fuck, I do need to listen to these people. Because he gets no sense of punishment by the end of the film. And that they do the same with, like, Finn and Phasma. There's that big rivalry from the first film. You could have built so much more out of that in this film. Like, maybe have they fight to a draw in this film, and then in the third one she's back and they have their final battle to show a completion of that arc. But it's just not present, and it felt like Rian Johnson at times was just thinking, I've got the bits I know I want to do. These are the bits I'm excited for. These are the bits everyone's going to love and talk about for years, but I know I've got to pay certain homage to certain characters where I know they're coming in later. And that just felt a little bit Well, there's no other word for it. It's just jarring because you're just cutting away from some of the best scenes in Star Wars history, like when she's going through the lessons with Luke and he's like screaming at her when they have their fights, and then you're cutting to things where it's the discussions with Benicio and Rose, and I don't hate it, it's just not what I went in for personally.
Yeah. And just watching the director and the Jedi, you can see how much effort has gone into this. Like with the casino stuff, while I feel like it could have been cut a lot shorter, there is a lot of craftsmanship on show.
Oh, definitely.
Like the puppeteering and then also the mix of CG and everything like that. It all works amazingly well together, especially with like the performances here. No one springs to mind as a weak link. Like especially Mark Hamill knocked it out of the park with this.
Oh, like good grief! Like he was Luke again.
Like when he was in the Millennium Falcon and he was sat there, and then he goes R2. Like even though his voice has changed a lot since the original trilogy, that was just so quintessentially Luke Skywalker. It just threw me right back to then.
Yeah, and you hear lots of things about like Kelly Marie Tran, for instance. Like I think she gave a great performance, but lots of people like shit on her character. Lots of people shit on the women in this. And I think the important thing to remember is not one of the actors in this gives a bad performance. They're all on the top of their game. It's just you're not a fan of the dialogue or the story decisions. Like there's no reason for you to crap on the actresses or the actors because they all really put their heart and soul into it. They're very happy to be there, especially Laura Dern with her little pew. Yeah. You just didn't like the story decisions. You didn't like the dialogue, which is, I think, something that people need to pay more attention to and not just crap on these actors because they were great.
Although something that did happen, and everyone's saying, why give Holdo that big moment where she goes to Lightspeed and she cuts through Snoke's ship? Everyone's saying, what a breathtaking moment. Let's just appreciate that moment for a second. Like, the use of sound, or lack thereof, fantastic.
That was one of my picks for sound design. You have to have that Oscar nomination for that scene alone.
Yeah. But everyone's saying, why give it to Holdo? Give it to Admiral Akbar. Fan favourite. Fantastic character. I agree. It was even in the How It Should Have Ended of The Last Jedi. I agree. Except, I was talking to someone about this, and we both sort of came up with it at the same time, and then we just both looked at each other and sort of thought, what a fantastic send-off it would have been to give that moment to Leia.
Yeah, completely. But I suppose that's just, they didn't know at the time what was going to be happening.
Course. Yeah.
You're right, it would have worked.
And maybe it would have been a bit too heavy-handed to kill both Leia and Luke in the same film.
That works also in the sense of, if you have Holdo in this movie and then it's Leia volunteers, like, I'm going to stay behind, I'm going to be the one to push the ship into Lightspeed, Holdo then just gets instantly such a bigger arc in the next movie. It's like, crap, I'm the one who now needs to step up. I need to fill that role. Even though some of these people, like Poe, now really don't support and like me, and the rebellion is basically dust by the end of The Last Jedi, but that is where I need to step up. My other regret for the film is something that I was just so desperately looking forward to in the sequel. When I first saw Force Awakens, I was like, right, they're going to really do this in Last Jedi. It was Snoke. Not in regards to like the fact that, I care who he is. I really didn't. Who he is doesn't really matter. Like if they say Darth Revan, that's a jarring moment and no one really gets it. Rey just shrugs that off. What I wanted was more Andy Serkis because he is fantastic.
And you can just see him chewing up the scenery in this. You can tell he's having so much fun, and that motion capture was photorealistic. Like there wasn't a dodgy shot of Snoke. And
not at all.
While some people are like, is he dead, isn't he dead, it would completely undercut pretty much the whole message of this film if he comes back to life, or he wasn't dead, it was just a projection, or Rey's parents are revealed to be somebody else. And
it has, like Snoke says to Ren, like, the deed has split you in half. It's done that to the fandom, like it's completely... There are those people who went in with that established notion, like, here's where we're going to get potentially some answers, we're going to get a little bit more. And then, as we of course know, Ryan didn't want to do anything like that. He didn't want to take JJ's script, and he didn't want to work with it. So you kind of residually get why some people are a little bit annoyed.
Yeah. And Rian Johnson said that he did write a monologue for Andy Serkis saying exactly who Snoke is, except it just didn't fit the scene. Because like you said earlier, Ray would just be like, who? Okay, sure. And then move on with it.
Yeah.
But I think it was interesting to not say who Snoke was, because it's, again, another separation from the original trilogy and the prequels, because if it was, like, it very well could be Darth Plagueis or someone else. And while it would be interesting and a nice loop round, Star Wars has always felt like you're in the middle of a story. So in A New Hope, you're thrown straight into it, and it always feels like there's a much bigger universe and or galaxy, and like you don't know the full picture. And I feel like that's where a lot of the Star Wars stories are sort of falling a bit flat.
Yeah. I was just about to say, it would be the equivalent of what they often did in Rogue One.
Yeah.
If they just instantly said, like, oh, I am Darth Revan, I am Darth Plagueis, it would be kind of like some of those scenes in Rogue One where he was like, oh, it's the Guardian of the Wills, or when the Cantina guy stood up. The audience, certain members, like, oh my, I've been wanting to see this video. The main character doesn't have a clue, the main character doesn't care.
Yeah.
They would have done the exact same thing with Rey, and it just made, although the audience would at the time would have gone like, oh my god, that's a brilliant lore thing to put into this movie, the characters, it's just like, okay, it just makes the scene redundant. And because that's one of the best scenes of the film, if not in many people's minds the best, you just don't need to clutter it with things like that.
Yeah. And especially like the direction, like the camera work in here is fantastic. Like there's a lot of interesting shots from like cinematography wise, and also like the sort of martial artsy Jackie Chan-esque action scene of the throne room, where they could pull the camera back and they had the actors there actually knowing the choreography and everything like that. It was fantastic. And that's why it's one of the most talked about scenes. Like even people that dislike the film I've seen say, oh yeah, but that scene was really
that
good.
scene was badass. Like,
Yeah.
I remember it was like we were sat in a room before we were going to see this film with some friends, and
we were
all
watching
like,
The Force Awakens again,
and we all said like, oh, what do we want to see in this film? Like, just top of your head, if something crazy could happen, what would you want it to be? And one of our friends said, oh, I want a lightsaber whip. And then when you basically got it in that Praetorian Guard scene where he's got like the whip, and we all looked at him instantly, and it was like, that's what that film does.
Seeing
like,
the joy on his face.
It just brings relentless joy to you as an audience. Like, I remember you were telling me to shut up relentlessly, but I just couldn't keep my mouth shut, because that's what Star Wars does. It just brings back that primal essence of just happiness in you, and you just can't contain it. Like, once the movie's done, you got some time afterwards. Yeah, you can reflect on it, but I think this movie succeeds in the sense that when you're watching it, you're having a blast. Yeah,
and it doesn't completely shit over everything that's come before it, because like mentioned earlier, I'm going to do an awful impression now. I may cut it out in editing if it's that bad.
Yeah, let's hear it.
But they bring back
that was beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
They bring back Frank Oz, and they bring it back to the original puppet, and they used the original like casts and everything like that, and like the prints for the puppet, and the amount of detail that went into even just that small bit. And Frank Oz is amazing.
Yeah, I can remember so distinctly just us all just having a miniature scream and holding hands. And then even when a few days later I went and saw it with some other people, I knew it was coming and they didn't, and I was looking at all of them. It was very much a red wedding moment. I knew what was coming, they didn't. I was just looking. And then when it hits them, it's just the tears, and it's like, oh my god, because you know it's brought back. Like, The Force Awakens did it in very many points, where it's the scene where they find the Falcon, it's like, oh man, we're home. But this was just another scene that encapsulated it.
Like, when it first had the blue glow, I thought, is it going to be Obi-Wan? Is it going to be... And then I was like, it was better. It was just Yoda, and I could not have been happier.
And very much like how it was Luke from the original trilogy. It was Yoda from the original trilogy. Yeah. Everything he said was like, it made sense. The little laugh and the hitting Luke with a stick. It honestly felt like we were watching.
He was a crazy old man again.
It was perfect. It was just what Yoda is, not the prequel, what we got there.
In Director and the Jedi, Frank Oz was talking about coming back, and he said that when Rian Johnson and Disney first approached him, he was like, "Oh, okay, so you want me to come in and do some voice and you want some CG?" And then they were like, "No, we want a puppet." And he was like, "Really? Thank God, yes, finally."
It is a beautiful film. I'll go on record and I say I think it's the best shot Star Wars film that's been made.
Like, there were beautiful shots in The Force Awakens, like when Ren freezes the bolt and everything like that. But this one has so many scenes in my head in the cinema. I was just thinking, I can make that a cover photo. I can make that poster. I can make this.
And although this will go down in infamy in my mind as the most subversive Star Wars film and the most talked about, the most argued, because it's now like people are being forced off the internet because of it. It's a dangerous thing to go on the internet now and say you like The Last Jedi, but I think in years to come we'll look back on this and we'll say, what a damn effort.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether we liked it or not, because I know many people that don't, I know many people that do, you'll look back on it and just think, yeah, that was a good effort. Everyone there was trying, and you can't fault it on that, where they had less time and they still put something forward really good. The prequels, they had even longer time and they still didn't do something good.
If it wasn't for my nostalgia for Empire Strikes Back, then this would be my favourite Star Wars film.
Yeah, I can argue that.
Because it still feels like a Star Wars film while being so much more than that. And it was just a fresh take and it was enjoyable.
And it, quite frankly, the message of The Force Awakens, it's like the Force is back. You're given that promise at the end of The Force Awakens, although it kind of squanders it at the beginning. By the end of The Last Jedi, it's lived up to that promise. The Force is back. Star Wars is back.
I just feel sorry for J.J. Abrams for having to pick up the pieces after that.
Poor guy. Oh dear, poor guy.
But a Star Wars film that has united people for a change, which is fantastic in doing so, except it's not so great on how it did it, is Solo, a Star Wars story. While people with Rogue One sort of were like, yeah, it's pretty good, and some people even praising it as like better than The Force Awakens, which I personally disagree with, but I feel like Rogue One was still very good and very well made, and like while Solo is still well made, it's still very lackluster.
I'm extremely glad that we paid barely anything to see this. Because
thank you, Meerkat Movies.
Yeah, thank you, Meerkat Movies, because I enjoy this film. Beautifully crafted, very well told, a lot of effort put in despite the shitstorm they had to deal with. But there's just nothing that just instantly pops up in my mind as just such a stellar moment. It really speaks to it when the fact that the most memorable scene in my mind is that brief shot where the Millennium Falcon is just flying in space and they're playing music from Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And that's a nothing moment.
You could tell that they'd given the composers the film and they were like, right, fix this. And so whenever anything interesting happens, to sort of amp up the audience, they start playing the original John Williams stuff. Yeah. And then their original stuff for this film's great.
Oh yeah, the score's fantastic. One of my favourites of 2018 so far.
Oh yeah. It's just all the memorable stuff for me was in the trailers, like the Star Destroyer coming through the clouds, and like I did quite like the performances. Like the first thing I thought going into this, you can't replace Harrison Ford as Han Solo, and while I'm still not fully convinced, they did a brilliant effort on Aldrich Killian.
Alden Ehrenreich, isn't it?
Wait,
Aldrich Killian is the villain from Iron Man 3. That's never being forgotten. So yeah, Alden Ehrenreich. He tried bloody hard in this film. You can dollars to donuts. I would bank that man for any other future movie because he gave the performance of his life in that short career, and he really tried. I think I've loved him for years, like Hail Caesar, Cafe Society. So I was really excited to see what he brought, and I came out in this film very divided in the sense that, for me, yes, he was Han Solo. He was that character. He brought the personality. He brought the weight of, yes, this is Han Solo. He wasn't, however, Harrison Ford. They gave him 2 moments in this film, and they're literally right on top of each other. It's just as he's met the rebel lady who pulls off her mask, and he's like, they give him 2 moments to do the smirk, and he screws it up twice. The Harrison Ford smirk, and he ruins it. But then there are the other scenes where it feels very much Han Solo, where he's the way he walks, the way he the things he says, that feels Han Solo. It's just Aaron Wright can't be Harrison Ford.
I mean, he's in a very difficult position because while he wants to bring something new to this iconic character, he also wants to try and, while doing his own thing, he has to play an actor playing another role rather than just playing the role himself. They are talk about big boots to fill.
There was no chance you were going to go into this film and you've got 100% love for it. Everyone's going to enjoy it. No matter who you cast, there's diversity. There's just difference of opinion because it's the biggest character in Star Wars. People, unless if it's Darth Vader, Han Solo is the biggest character. There's instantly going to be love and interest in what they do with him, and there's instantly going to be anger for what you do with the character in this film, which there clearly was. And one of the draws that pulls you in about Han Solo, the character, is that you don't know anything about him, whereas and then they added on it in The Force Awakens, where it then becomes almost like a Shakespearean tragedy where his son takes his life, and then he sort of almost fulfills a prophecy sort of thing. He closes the circle, and it makes him such a three-dimensional, well-rounded character. And then in Solo, they just you're by yourself, so your second name's going to be Solo. Oh, I would pay to be in the writing room to see when they came up with that decision. How are we going to give him his name? Yeah, let's just do it like that. It's just...
Also, that raises a few questions with Kylo Ren and Ben Solo, right? You're Han Solo, right?
No, keep going. I just love it how you bring it to that.
You're Han Solo. You have a kid with a literal princess, now queen, high military ranking officer, with a Skywalker second name. You, who didn't have a second name, just got given it on the fly. Think of how many people have just got given that name on the fly. It's not like it's been passed down through generations. He just got given someone who's on minimum wage. They don't want to be there. He doesn't want to be there. That's exactly what I was trying to get out. And then he's like, do you know what? Instead of giving them this royal name, I'm just gonna name him Solo.
That's the best. That's the best angry comment I've ever heard about this film. Fuck the fact that Maul jarringly turns up or there's an awful twist reveal. It's just the fact that you take your name after a grunt.
Also, something that got me about
another thing.
I'm not as passionate about this one, but it was more something that confused me. Hearing the Imperial March diegetically in the film as that pop-up advert, I was like, hang on, what's going on here? An iconic piece of music, and it's so does this exist in the universe? And I could tell that was a Phil Lord and Chris Miller moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they were very much poking fun at what a Star Wars film is. And I'm not sure if, your name will be Solo, was them or it was Ron Howard. Yeah. But what a bad decision. It's
just an embarrassment of riches, this film, in the sense that there are so many interesting little plot points they can go into and that they hint, and it's damn, I want to see more of that, and yet they focus on the crap stuff.
Yeah.
Every time Kira says about, she was my favourite character in the film, I was desperate to see more of her. Every time she says, you wouldn't believe the things I've done to survive. Let me see them, I want to see that. When Lando's talking about some of his past exploits, let me see them because we've got no idea. And yet they choose to focus on stuff like Han, and we know where it's going to go. They focus on that feminism robot L3 that you just kind of after one scene are this is what she's going to be for the whole film. When they set up interesting premises and they don't deliver on it and they don't even attempt to go back to it, it just reeks of a little bit of lazy writing.
And as you say, they hint at more interesting things. It's like with Suicide Squad in 2016, showing the Joker and Harley dynamic of her being a psychiatrist and then slowly turning into Harley Quinn. I don't want the Suicide Squad film. I want a 10-episode Netflix series of the Joker slowly turning her. Imagine if you got a good writer in how interesting that dialogue would be, and seeing her slowly devolve, almost like the Breaking Bad arc of from hero, like protagonist, to complete antagonist, and seeing that arc fully fledged. That is what we want to see. And like, while Solo interesting, I think it's Dan Merle who said, this is the first Star Wars film that you will forget.
Oh god, yeah. And this is also the first Star Wars film where you're looking at your watch as it runs, because like, we were getting to the end and I was just kind of like, I was restless in my seat. I was kind of, do you want to go? It was nothing
just
awful.
Waiting for something to happen.
This is a moment that you often talk about in many films, personally, where it never had that moment. Like, when you talk about Blade Runner 2049, one of the best sci-fi films in recent years, that's got so many that moments where it's like, her eyes were green, the fight under the waterfall.
Yeah.
That's that moment. This film didn't have one. Like, I can't think of any particular scene that just made me go, wow, I need more of that. That was something I'll remember for years to come.
Although, when they had the reveal of Woody Harrelson being the one who betrayed them, that was so predictable.
Oh, yeah.
How much better would it have been? Like, he'd only been gone for 2 minutes of screen time, 5 minutes or something. Yeah. How much more interesting would it have been if it was Lando, or if it was Emilia Clarke's character who did it? Because then that would have been something else on top of it, like more three-dimensional, whereas or even better, Tandy Newton's character.
Yeah, she's survived somehow. Well, that'd be interesting.
Like,
I'd love to
she
see
faked
that.
her death because of this, that, and the other.
That would be something interesting. But as well, it comes to a point where the plot is just so predictable. There are points where I thought we could have gone in with a bingo card with this. Like, we could have been, this guy betrays this guy, she dies unfortunately, he gets a crappy name. Like, you can just predict this beat for beat for beat. It just... Star Wars has never been a generic movie franchise. There's always been something about it that's unique that you don't see in other films.
Even the prequels, the amount of special effects and like what they did for that and pushing that forward, even if the writing wasn't always great, the amount that they pushed that forward and pushed the limits of what you can make in film. Yeah. This one's just, it does nothing. It's a generic movie number 3 with a Star Wars skin on it. Yeah,
it's the literal epitomization of the word meh as a movie.
Yeah.
Because it's done and then you've forgotten about it. I was ready for food. I was thinking about food when we were walking out of this film. I was just like, right.
I was just thinking, chips or cheesy chips?
Yeah, that's literally what we were thinking. And I just hope as well, like, because I think the box office has spoken to this. This isn't an awful film, but it isn't a well-performing film for sure. Like, this hasn't done well.
Part of that is on Disney's head rather than the quality of the film. No, I think the quality of the film hasn't helped it with the like negative reviews, but it was February and a trailer hadn't even come out.
Yeah,
and I think the same's happening with Ant-Man and the Wasp. After Infinity War, do you reckon Disney's like, we've made all the money, we don't need to make any more? Because we haven't had nearly enough press. Like, in America, it's not coming out here for a while yet, but in America, Ant-Man and the Wasp is out next Friday. And people on Twitter were like, oh, that's happening then. And then I heard people talking about it with Solo as well. It's like, oh, Solo's out next week.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, whereas Infinity War, counting down the days.
Yeah, we were.
It was like Christmas morning.
Yeah, you
were
camping outside back in the good old days.
Yeah.
And this is the first Star Wars film as well where I feel like they've kind of just fucked up the marketing ideas. Like, with Force Awakens and Last Jedi, there was that big 2-year gap, which, like, plenty of time for story. Rogue One was there if you wanted it, if you needed some more Star Wars satiation, because a lot of people do. This is the one where it was like, it is far too soon. Like, you've got December locked as Star Wars month. You put it then so that the fatigue has had even longer to draw off. And then you don't stick it in May as well, where it's literally right after Infinity War. Deadpool 2 is, I think, that was 2 weeks later that we had Deadpool 2. You don't stick it in a crappy quarter for where you're not going to make money on it. You save it for where you know people are going to go and see it. I think then at least it would have made a little bit more money.
Yeah.
And it just sets a precedent of, I'm a little worried about Star Wars at the moment.
Yeah, like, there were opportunities to make a good film. Like, when they first announced it, people thought, really, do we really need this? And this was their opportunity to say yes. And even if it didn't have to be as surprising as The Last Jedi. It didn't have to necessarily be as interesting as The Last Jedi. But it made me lose hope in Star Wars stories like the spin-off ones, because Rogue One was like, yeah, they can be interesting. It can have the Vader scene. It can have redeeming qualities. But here, like, I think not only has the box office spoken, but they've taken a step back and they're like, shit, we really need to think about this. Star Wars isn't just a money printer.
Yeah.
They've now said that they're taking a step back. They're taking Episode 9 still up, but they've taken a lot of Star Wars stories off of the roster, and they're going to progress them a lot more, make them more fully fledged and ready.
Yeah. And they're locked into a corner now, like, because Episode 9's, of course, always going to be happening, but with these, they want these Star Wars stories to continue. They've got to do something that is going to be guaranteed to get butts in seats. And unless if you do a fully fledged old man Ewan McGregor Kenobi movie,
which everyone wants,
no one is going to come and see your movie. Unless if you do something now that we want and that is going to be guaranteed to get butts in seats, people will instantly give up on the idea of these Star Wars stories. We've had 2 mediocre ones that, in retrospect, we haven't fully wanted. Give us something that A, the fans want, that B, we aren't fully expecting, and then try and make something original out of it, and then we'll be on board for it.
Because even if Phil Lord and Chris Miller stayed on and it didn't work, because this isn't all to blame for Ron Howard, but even if Phil Lord and Chris Miller stayed on and it wasn't very good, it would have still been their vision, and people know what they're getting with their films, and it would have been their failure rather than everyone just And I feel like after Episode 9, Disney needs to take a step back, have a year off, maybe 2, so everyone's really up and ready for Star Wars again. And even if it's not Episode 10 straight away, which I don't think it should be, I think do bring back a Star Wars story.
Make me hungry for it.
Yes.
Like, I'm an overfed child at this point, Disney. Make me hungry for it again.
Augustus Gloop.
Yeah, quite frankly. We're going to go kind of on a similar spectrum now, but we're going to try and remove some of the negativity. We're going to go into another well-loved, but also in some people's opinion, divisive sci-fi films, but I personally enjoyed it to death. That is Annihilation. This is the thinking man's portion of sci-fi for this year. Like, this isn't one that you're going to bring your kids to. This is like cold, hard adult filmmaking, and I fucking loved this film.
Or in the UK, you're not going to bring anyone to it unless it's around your house because it was only put up on Netflix.
Good shout.
And yes, I'm glad that I could see it as soon as it was released on Netflix, and it was beautiful. I'm glad that I just had the chance to see it. How fantastic would it have looked up on the cinema screen?
If this had been on the cinema screen, you can guarantee I'd have gone twice.
Yeah.
Because I would have gone, not just to look at the crazy plot again, I would have gone just for those visuals on the cinema screen, like, just to see those things that we saw. It was beautiful watching it on, like, a really nice HDTV, but when it's up there, it was one of those cinematic moments akin to 2001, akin to Interstellar. It was something that I feel like if I had seen in the theatre, I would have never, ever forgotten it.
Now, a little update for listeners. Recently managed to peer pressure my dad into buying a projector. Now, this summer, we have a lot of films planned that we're going to go outside and watch in the garden. I feel like this would be a perfect one because get it up on a big screen, get decent speakers to just get fully immersed in it. And something I have noticed with this film, people when they first watch it, they're like, oh, it was all right, or they didn't particularly like it. And then after it sinks in, after they've had a while to think about it, they realise the genius behind it, and then they do love it.
I think
I've noticed, not everyone.
No, I agree with you. Like, it's a very mixed bag. There's the people who think it's just a generic blend of lots of sci-fi ideas, and then there are those people who just kind of think like, you take a bit of more of a look at it and you say like, damn, that was that little character point there. There was that little like subtlety that it's just laid throughout this film. Like, Alex Garland takes this novel and he just like meticulously crafts this beautifully woven narrative that it looks stunning, it's dark as hell, and it's honestly just like a joy to watch it. Like, it's horrible to see the things happen to the characters in this film, but at the same time, it's giving you a beautifully realised world that you've never really seen before. And it's stunning.
Alex Garland said that he read the book years ago, and then and then when it came to making this film, he got the rights for it, and then he didn't go back to reading it. He made the film off of what he remembered most prominently from the book. And I think it was the ATZ show, ATZ, was like, that's the best excuse I've heard for like revising for a test.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm just going off the memory of it. But something that Annihilation does really well, and it's a testament to Alex Garland's filmmaking, is he juggles and balances a lot of themes, a lot of almost different genres. Like, there's the moment with the screaming bear, and how tense and petrifying that was. Then also in the same film, having that beautiful moment of Tessa Thompson's character just going, then suddenly the camera turns around and becomes the flower.
Like, when you see that scene with Tessa Thompson, it makes very clear to you, this isn't A Wrinkle in Time. It isn't going to be Reese Witherspoon turning into a flying cat lettuce. This is like, oh god, she's turning into flower. She is going to float away.
And when I first saw it, when I tweeted about it, I was like, after thinking that it was going to be this new definition of what science fiction is and what it can be, it was instead a lot of some of its parts. Like, you could see where it's been inspired by different bits and pieces here and there. I then got into a discussion with someone on Twitter about it, and they said, isn't that the point?
Yeah.
Like, inside that dome that looked like a big bubble, inside it, that's where everything meshes. And then that's one of the moments where it all clicked for me, and I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah. My experience of it was actually, this will sound weird, it is very akin to the 2016 Jason Bourne movie. It was like, I was hyped as hell for this film. The trailers looked amazing. The record of those involved, stellar. Go in, and I'm unsure about the experience. I come out, and I'm like, okay, that wasn't what I was hoping for. But then going away, when I saw Jason Bourne, I went away and I thought, that car chase scene, that hand-to-hand combat sequence, fucking fantastic. I went away with this film, and I just relentlessly focused on the good. The bad or questionable points of this film, if there are any, are things you're thinking about while watching it, but abundantly, when you walk away from this film, you can't help but think about the good. The scene with the bear, the scene where she is like being pinned to the floor and it is moulding into herself. It's just something that relentlessly impressed me, and is the kind of filmmaking that we aren't exposed to enough anymore.
I saw a very different side to Tessa Thompson in this, because in Westworld and in Thor Ragnarok, I don't think I've seen her in anything else. I might have seen her stuff, but they're the things
amazing
that spring
Creed.
to mind. Oh yeah, that's true.
Amazing
That's
Creed.
on my list. She's like a badass, and she's in full power, and whereas here, she is vulnerable. She isn't one of these outspoken people, and you can see an extra depth to her performance, where it just shows the variety she can do. She can do comedy, but here she can do emotional, and she's like, no, it's my time to go, and then walks off. And also Natalie Portman here.
God damn.
Bloody hell, Natalie Portman here.
Like, seconded only by Black Swan, her
Yeah.
performance in this film.
And arguably Leon, just because I love Leon so much.
Yeah, only Leon.
but
Third then. But
I really loved her performance as a tree in the Star Wars prequels.
we're not going there. We're not going there. Positivity. We said positivity for this one.
How great would it be, as she's walking along the beach towards the lighthouse, there's just the Force ghost of Anakin going, I hate sand. It's rough.
Shut up.
But as well as Natalie Portman, Oscar Isaac is brilliant in this as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's creepy and he's slow, and then I can't even explain what it was.
It's just,
but
there's a
something about
vacancy.
his performance, yeah.
Like, you get it with certain actors where they're just vacant, they don't want to be there, but with this one, it's the vacancy that drives his performance. Like, you want to know what's going on behind those eyes that just aren't saying anything. And it's a testament to Oscar Isaac as well, given that he was going set to set from Last Jedi and this, so he was going plucky, jokey Poe Dameron to, I came back from under the dome, just saying nothing, just energyless, and it was like, how do you wake up in the morning and transfer between that day to day? I know I couldn't do it, and it's just incredible to watch.
Yeah. Also, the cinematography in this is quite good. Like, there are some
Bloody hell.
absolutely stunning shots, not only of the lighthouse, but even just like the smaller, simpler moments of when he first goes back to the house, and then the blood and the water in the cup, and I was like, wow, this is stunning.
Yeah, you said about your Last Jedi, it's like I can pause it and it's a cover photo.
Yeah.
Annihilation was that movie for me. There was such incredible cinematography, but set design and world building was also up there.
Fantastic.
This film proved that if you want to make a Last of Us movie, you give it to the guys who built Annihilation, because, like, Jesus Christ, it was akin. Like, they were the same world at points, and it was beautiful. Like, realizing the Last of Us scene in this almost spiritual way on the screen was just, like, my mind was blown up about it, and I didn't even have time to think, wow, this is The Last of Us, because I was just so encased in this beautiful plot.
Do you know what would be fantastic? An Annihilation video game.
That would be incredible.
Be it a Telltale where it's more story driven,
Yep.
or if it is exploring that world, or even if it, I don't know, but I just love to explore that world even more because it was so interesting.
Or
like,
you do
the creature designs and that thing in the swimming pool of how it
God,
gone up the wall, and
or you do
fantastic.
what happens when she's now left the dome. You do it as a Telltale series.
Yeah,
You bring that new engine they've got. And I also want to reiterate on your point about Tessa Thompson. Based on like this, and I know you haven't seen it, but her stunning turn in the Westworld season 2 finale, which
I'm nearly there.
we hope to one day talk about on this show, but she has become my favourite actress in a heartbeat. Like, if it's not Robin Wright, I personally think Tessa Thompson is the most upcoming star. Like, you see it in Ragnarok, you see it in Creed, you see it in Westworld, you see it in this. Relentless class, relentless talent. It's the reason I'm excited for the Men in Black reboot, because she will be in it. And she's just faultless in this film. She steals it from Natalie Portman in moments for me, and that's not easy to do when it is Natalie Portman.
I think the ensemble cast were also pretty good in this. As
Oh
well.
yeah.
Like,
Jennifer Jason Leigh and I forget the girl from Jane the Virgin. Forget her name. Some horrible person, but just that unit they made and how they slowly fall apart. And how each of them is this damaged character. You believed all of them, and I remembered all of them. Like, I remember their characters, I remember the beats in the story, and then they each had their own little moment. Like when the one woman's in the boat telling about their stories, when she's torn apart by the bear, she becomes the tree person, when she becomes the cloud. It's just such good character design and payoff and arcs, and it's just exactly what Alex Garland does well.
Like, I've only seen this film a number of times, and I haven't seen it in a while. But even now, I still remember moments. Like, not even just moments. I still remember what happens in the characters, because it was just so interestingly and dynamically put together and forged together that it just comes out with a great film. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. So just do yourself a favour and check it out.
Yeah, you can see this for free.
Yeah.
Like, that's the shocking part about it. Like, this is one of the best made sci-fi films ever made, and you can see it for free.
Another, like, I suppose there is a good thing about it being on Netflix, and that's that it definitely gets the money for it, because Netflix don't earn money from people seeing specific titles, and it means that it doesn't have the same problems as Blade Runner 2049 had, where it's fantastic and then it's not making any money. So I am glad that they are supporting that, and they are listening to what people want to see and putting it on there. It just would have been nice to see it with a theatrical release or something like that.
Definitely. I hope it is something we one day get the opportunity to see in a theatre, whether it's just they're playing it. But the Netflix model works. Yeah. It's gotten it out there, and it meant we could see it as soon as we wanted to. So can't be complaining.
But something I am very glad I saw in cinema, and hilarious just seeing people in tense moments trying to be as quiet as they can with popcorn. A Quiet Place was fucking phenomenal.
I'm devastated I didn't get to see this in the theatre. Devastated. But probably, in my mind, one of the most unique, original, perfect little horror films I've seen in so fucking long.
Yeah.
It renewed my faith in horror, this one.
It takes it back to basics. Interesting characters that you actually root for and you're emotionally invested in. And then it actually has sacrifices. And at the start with the kid, like, I was like, in the marketing, I only thought there were two. What the fuck?
Opening, that's ingrained on my mind forever now. Yeah. And that will be replicated and studied and just relentlessly copied in future horror films, and you can see it from the second it happens, because it just grabs you by the throat with that scene. It says, you're in for a fucking ride, this film.
Like when John Krasinski was on talk shows, and then he'd be talking to like Jimmy Fallon or someone, and then he said how when Emily Blunt came on board, because John Krasinski part wrote this, and Emily Blunt came on board when they were on a plane, and then she was like, oh, can I read it? And then that was on the first few pages, and she was like, my God, I need to be in this. And Emily Blunt is phenomenal. Like, even the more nuanced scenes where she hasn't got a lot of acting per se to do, where she's just even cooking her in the background, but when she's in the bathtub and she has to give birth silently, my God.
Like, it's a scene that, in my opinion, will become eponymous with horror, like in the 21st century. Like, we'll look back on certain scenes like the I Am Your Mother from the Babadook, and we'll look back at scenes like that because it's just so stunningly well crafted and performed. Like, the knowing that it's there and you're holding your breath with her, like, you're like, oh, and then you've just got to let it out. She is the realization of what the audience is feeling at that point. They are desperate to let off some sound, and when she does, like, you can't help but kind of let it out with her.
Like, even the marketing team knew like how iconic this scene is going to be because it was on one of the posters. It kept building up tension. It just needed it to be broken, then it wasn't, and then finally it was, and it was fantastic. Because for ages, well, for quite a while, it felt like ages. It probably wasn't even that long, but for ages it felt like, come on, go back to her. Is she all right? Is she safe? But one of the negatives, well, not negatives, but one of the things that made me think and sort of took me out a bit, when they're by the waterfall and they shout, like, I get that the water masks it, but does it mask it that much for them to shout that loudly?
There's a lot of points where you can just point little plot holes and just question it. Like, there's no way she's getting up that quickly after she's just given birth. No way. She seems it's okay to be walking on that foot after she's just stabbed herself. Like,
that scene.
That's horrible, but it's like she seems a little bit okay. But it's a movie. I think it's just something you've got to accept for those beautiful character moments. And what I love about this is exactly what it's all about. It's character. What works relentlessly is that you enjoy the family, them together. You care that they make it. And with a lot of horror films, you don't care about the victims, but with them, you feel sympathy for all of them from that very first shot. They've had that catastrophic loss, all of them together.
And the kid blames herself.
Yeah, she's the most
devastating. She deserves an award.
Yeah, she's just the best part of it. Like, every scene she's in, she owns.
She was just. I feel like this, almost like The Last Jedi, this film definitely needs to be nominated for the Sound Oscar.
Oh, hell yeah. It's going to get it.
The moments of silence to build tension, like normally they're all doing it for build it, or like jump scares. Like, I think while there were jump scares, they don't
jump like out at you as in like, oh, they're ruining it.
Like any particular ones. Like, there's the jump scare at the start, and it's not really a jump scare because it jolts you, but that's when it grabs the kid.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's used to such a good effect. So it's not plagued by any fatigue of jump scares at all. It's fantastic.
And it just works in the sense that this is only a 90-minute film. It's really short, but there isn't a frame wasted. Like, if it's not building tension, it's doing those subtle and beautiful character moments where it's just building these relationships that do ultimately make you care when these people are running around in the dark and being hunted. And it's not just this excellent plot, it's the fact that it truly is a unique setting. The fact that Krasinski and whoever else wrote the film can build such a unique premise and such a unique way of shooting horror and presenting like that relatable fear that the audience then has, like, you can't speak during the film. It just works so well because you're just relentlessly quiet during this film. Like, you try not to breathe watching this.
I wouldn't say that there are any filler scenes in the film, because I'd say that if a scene's there that some would maybe point out as filler, I'd say that it's world building, and it's not just like the Hobbit of them walking around. It's like relevant, seeing like how they get fish and how it's interesting things that they're showing off, and then like with the board games, and they're doing it with felt to be quiet. I'd say that's really interesting, like ways to world build that I would say have been done before, but haven't been done to this good effect.
No.
Because like you say, every frame is necessary and important because it helps build character, it helps build the world. It's fantastic.
The fact that I love this film so much is because the villain is just so brilliantly interesting. The fact is that a lot of these horror films, I think particularly this one, they could have just made this like a generic monster, but they just worked so hard to make it interesting. Like the design of these creatures, like when their head is like splitting open, and then like when it reveals like the little hole in its neck when it does the ticking for to like use the echolocation. It's so phenomenal to look at these creatures.
And
the design
special
is amazing.
effects were fantastic.
Like there wasn't a moment where they looked awful.
Yeah,
like, they looked great the whole film, and it kind of harkened back to with this film the reason why I love the pilot of The Walking Dead so much. Like they instantly is set up like this isn't just some roaming, wandering monster. It's gonna be something that strips something from you that you deem essential. Like the zombies, I mean the walkers, they did it in the 13. It's like you can't make too much sound. Like you can't rely on guns. You can't rely on like yelling to people like it's behind you because you will attract more of them. And they deviated away from that in later seasons. That you don't have that anymore. They're strong enough. They fight the walkers. But whereas with this film, it's something where it's like it's stolen that primal thing that builds a family, like communication, and it's stolen something that we take for granted in this normal world, and it just encapsulates horror in that sense that they're not like tearing us apart, they're not hunting us relentlessly, they're stealing the things that we just take for granted and that we hold so dearly, especially when you're in that family environment.
And another thing about this film is that it doesn't need all these big jump scares or these big supernatural moments to be scary. Like it doesn't need like these big builds up, because while it does have moments of that, it's scary because you care for the characters. And then it also has setups and payoffs that are more for emotion rather than horror, where like when she's down in the basement and she sees all that her dad's been doing for her, and it just adds even more to that emotional moment of when the dad just shouts, and it's just such that gut release of tension, and then it's just such that beautiful shout and in a roar.
And it's like you talk about payoff. This has got practically such a rare ending for a horror film, in the sense that horror films end with either everyone's dead, they've killed the monster, or it's melancholy. It's rare it goes beyond that three. This is such a satisfactory ending in the sense that they haven't survived, they haven't beaten them, but they've worked out how to beat them. Like they've like when she springs the shotgun and it just cuts back, it's just that instant feeling of like they're gonna be okay. Like he sacrificed himself so that they can make that future that they always talked about. The baby will be safe because now they know how to defend themselves, and you don't need any more in a way. I know they're making a sequel, but
I don't want a sequel.
The essence of just what that ending means is like we're gonna be okay now. We finally, after all this time, worked out how we're going to make it ourselves safe. Yeah.
And Krasinski really breaks he's just Jim from The Office.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like, yeah, he's been in other things like the 13 Hours in, I don't know, that Michael Bay one. And he's been in a few other things. He's been really good. Like, I love John Krasinski. He's hilarious. He is such charisma and screen presence in comedy, and relating that over to horror and drama. He really has what it takes to. He gave a fantastic like performance. Like he does the subtle nuances, and you can tell that he's so passionate about telling this story. And he's been like he was part writing it, and then he's director, and he's thought of all these little intricacies. You can just tell his passion behind it and the emotion behind his performance, especially as I think him and Emily Blunt's real children are around those ages. I could be wrong, but I
think they've said that in an interview.
Yeah, but no weak link performance-wise.
No, every single one of them I look forward to seeing more of.
Yeah,
and just the children in this film, like I say it a lot in regards to cinema in the 21st century. We're in a golden age of child acting, and they are continual proof of it.
Because normally, like traditional child actors, not really been a fan. Like I get how they're essential to certain stories, but here and then like with It and other stuff, fantastic child performances.
Yeah, some of the very best I've ever seen. I think it's also beautiful in the sense that the girl is deaf in real life, and yet this film relates so primarily, I think, and it will speak to a lot of people with disabilities in the sense that her disability becomes the power by the end of the film. It's like what makes her able to defeat them is the fact that it's like she's trying to overcome her disability, and although she doesn't overcome her inability to hear, she overcomes the threat to her family. And I think that's what really speaks to it. Like, she turns her disability, because there is that at the very end. You see the shot of it, like she knows it's going to destroy her hearing aid that works, but she realises what's more important. She turns it into a weapon, and it's like her giving up, her acceptance of it, that it's just, it will make people want to come back to this film again and again. And it's, in my opinion, without doubt, one of the best horror films of the 21st century. We'll come back to this for years to come.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it was getting loads of attention when it first came out, and it's still getting attention now because it's not going away for some time. And do you think if a sequel isn't this good, it will damage the first one? Like, people will be like, oh, that's just trying to turn it into a franchise that's not good, or it will be like Jurassic Park, where it's like, oh, the first one's still a classic, it's fantastic, like filmmaking at its peak. It couldn't be in any other medium. Well, Jurassic Park can, but with A Quiet Place, it couldn't be in any other medium because of the sound, because of everything culminating, coming together. Do you think that they'll be like, this is a classic and the sequels are just weak, ignore them, or it'll ruin it all?
I think it's too soon to speculate as to what the sequel's going to bring. If Krasinski's involved, I'm interested. Love to see him in a directorial role again because he was perfect with it. But you get this time and time again with the horror films that there's always a sequel to some horror films. Look at Scream, Evil Dead. Sometimes they're fantastic, sometimes they're just mediocre. I don't know what we're going to get with this one, but if it is mediocre, there's no chance in hell that it's going to take away from what we experienced in this film. We experienced like something we hadn't had in a horror film a long time again, which was a reason to remain tense because you felt it as equally. And we haven't seen characters this well crafted in a long while. Yeah. Not since The Babadook have I seen a well crafted set of characters in horror film.
It's just so interesting and fresh, and it's almost like one of the reasons why The Weeping Angels are so scary is because it takes away something so fundamental to life.
And it's just the equivalent of the shock factor around them, because like we said, there aren't jump scares in this film, but there are those little moments where it's just you turn a corner, it's like, oh crap, it is right next to me, like what do I do? Like,
and it doesn't fake it out with jump scares. It's not like building up tension then it was just something like just a bird flying past to shock you. Well, it was at one point, but it feels meaningful, and then sometimes it's just, oh shit, it's there.
It's there.
Fucking it's hell.
There. One that we'll no doubt be watching again, and I feel it's going to be in the conversation for Oscars. I really hope it is. Like, if it's on a technical level alone or a screenplay level,
I can't see it winning Best Picture.
No way it'll win Best Picture. But
sound, I'm yet to see one in 2018 that beats it for sound.
Screenplay maybe even. It's a very clever original piece, and I mean, you look at the box office, it's the only reason Paramount's in the conversation for box office this year. It did well, this film. And it was interesting from start to finish.
Low budget horror at the minute. They're taking risks for the most part. They're bringing interesting ideas, and audiences are really responding well to that, and I love it.
It's why it speaks to me the most primarily, and it's why it's my favourite genre, because it's just everywhere within it. There's just something new. And this film is relentless proof of that. Another film that I did not get the chance to see with this man here, but I did get a chance to look at it in theatres, was 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And this was a transformative film just in life for me, because it just made me just feel such emotion in it. I went into this film with just such preconceived notions of what it was going to be, what I was going to feel, how I was going to relate to these characters, what I was going to expect of the story, and it just flipped it on its head. And it made me realise just there are some smaller things in life, just like giving someone next to you a hug, just calling your mum every once in a while, and just every now and then just like being quiet when someone says something that pisses you off. Just the meticulous effort and the stupendous craft of 3 Billboards continues to stun. And I get if they had given it Best Picture.
One moment it makes you laugh, one moment it makes you cry, the next you're doing both at the same time. The way that this film handles emotion and what it builds off of from there. Like, even when it's just the deer coming up to her and she's like, "You're trying to make me believe in reincarnation because
you're pretty, but you ain't her."
Yeah, you're pretty, but you ain't her. And it's just moments like that. And yes, there are problems with the film, like how it deals with race, for example. That's been well documented. There was a lot about it when it first came out, about how it's not good with that. And I do understand that there are limitations, but then even looking at it from a technical level, like, yes, a few shots are a bit overexposed, but that one, what's made to look like one take, like one shot of Sam Rockwell going up, throwing him out the window, punching her in the face, and
that's my favourite part of the film, punches her in the face.
It's just things like that. These are such flawed characters in a broken world, and then seeing them just trying to come together. And I like how it did leave the ending ambiguous on if they
one of the best ambiguous endings
on if they just go to actually kill him or if they just go together. Or like, I'm glad that they didn't say, "Oh, we're going to go and kill him." They're like, or maybe not, we'll just go and see. But
and I love how it establishes the immediacy and the importance between a professional and private life, because there is the conflict throughout all of this film. Like, she shouldn't have the billboards up, like it's upsetting the town people. And Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell are questioning her. It's like, can you take them down? But then when serious things that they recognise as important happen in life, all animosity is just dropped. Like, there's that beautiful scene where they are in the room and he's like telling her, like, you're going to have to take these down. And then when he coughs the blood in her face and he's like...
That's silence.
He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And she's like, "It's okay." Like, you're expecting her to flip out or show no remorse. She's just like, "It's okay, honey. I get it."
That they are
I get
humans.
it. She respects him as a human being, and it just... She respects the importance of life. And
this is a big trend I'm seeing a lot in modern cinema like, the past few years. Silence is being used incredibly well. Like, when he coughs up the blood and then they just look at each other. It's like...
There's long pauses of just... And it works even more especially when it's like these long just positions and it's just long shots and it's just waiting. That scene where he puts the bag on his head and he's like, he's playing with his hands, he's just with the horses, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
And they're like, what's written on it?
Before it goes on, you're given a second to like contemplate, oh no, and then it happens, kills himself, and it's like, there's so little room or time to comprehend these things, and the shock value works as immediately to the characters as it does to you, and I think that's a stupidly rare thing to achieve for a film.
Yeah, like, almost like A Quiet Place. They build up these characters, and people like Sam Rockwell shouldn't be redeemed by the end. He isn't fully redeemed.
No, he isn't.
He's gone through a lot, and yes, throwing someone out a window, he shouldn't have just lost his badge. He should have been arrested, and he should have had charge pressed against him. But there was that lovely innocent moment in the hospital where he goes up to him with his like orange juice, and then he realises it's him. And it's just moments like that. Like, it's such a... Just emotions, man.
It's the humanity of it all, and it's like... I want to really bring this up. It's Peter Dinklage's character. He was in the most sensational supporting roles in this entire fucking film, and it's just that scene where they're in the restaurant, and this entire film is built on the premise of you are meant to relate to Frances McDormand. This is her story, this is her problem, this is her quarrel, and you don't ever assume that any of the other characters are as equal or important as her. And yet when you get to him, when he says it's like, I can't even get a fucking date, like, you're the one who's there and I'm not a catch, and you just realise these are just such stupidly human characters, how he's got his own problems, how she registers it herself in the sense that, like, my life has been ruined, turned upside down in the worst possible kind of way, and yet I'm not the only person that has to wake up every morning and feel like shit. I'm not the only person that doesn't like themselves. And to see him, like, Peter Dinklage has got a subtlety to just to every single performance he gives. It's just, he doesn't get angry with her. He's just like, it almost feels like it's a relief for him just to get it off his chest. Like, it's just, I don't know what to say, but I've got to say
there was a lot
this.
of nuance to that bit, especially in that moment.
And at the earlier stages of the film, like, he's just played off as that cheap, like, little side bit. It's like, oh yeah, she was with me the whole night. It's like, oh yeah, you look great on the TV. Not that way, you just look good. Like,
and then it shows that there is actual...
There's something to it, and it's like... Oh. And it just is a testament to supporting roles in this film, because everyone's brilliant. Like, everyone talks about Sam Rockwell, but at the same time, Woody Harrelson's brilliant. His wife is brilliant. Like, I forget her name, but like, for me, Woody Harrelson steals it over Sam Rockwell. Just when he's reading those letters, what he does with voice alone, it just like, it breaks you.
Marvel films. Sorry, did you have any more?
Keep going ahead.
Marvel films are criticised a lot for their use of bathos in like a serious moment, like a dramatic moment, then undercut like let's go get shawarma or something like that. But here, comedy is utilised so well that it makes it realistic, and like I said earlier, you laugh and you're crying, and it's just, it doesn't undercut moments, it amplifies them.
Without
like
doubt.
It's such clever writing, and really enjoyed this film.
It's, in my opinion, a tragedy this didn't win for best writing, because it's the most human, most just...
I see why Get Out got it.
Yeah, I get it why Get Out got it, but it's just, this was a more... Get Out was an original story, but this is how people talk. This is how people react to one another, and this is...
Felt like Noah Baumbach dialogue, where, like, even though they're not talking over each other, it felt real.
And don't get me wrong, Get Out is a stupidly important story. It's important that people learn the messages of that, but this just sets a precedent of just appreciate the small things, just realise that people have got their own problems. It just teaches you those subtle little messages, and it just works for that reason. And I think that's ultimately not only what in ways makes it more an important film, but will be what makes people come back to it. Because you don't get answers by the end of this film.
Yeah.
You don't get... Like, you think you're going to go in, it's going to be a mystery, it's going to be a bit of a drama. But you know, it's a stunning character study, and the ambiguity at the end just cements this journey that they've been on, just why it ultimately works. And why Martin McDonagh is just a god. Just that guy can make anything after this.
But yeah, there are problems with race and representation and stuff. But
doubt.
At the end of the day, this is a brilliant story.
Yeah.
And the film isn't condoning this. The film isn't saying anything like that. It's just, these are the characters in the film, and these are the beliefs of those characters.
Yeah.
Like, it's not saying that's a gospel, but like when people were criticising Sam Rockwell, Martin McDonagh said he's a flawed character. Everyone's flawed. People do get redemption, but that still doesn't make them a good person. And it's interesting things like that, and it started an interesting discussion.
Yeah, really. And it's just, it's an availability to say things that characters would normally say. Like, I think it's kind of opened the door a little bit in the sense that, like, oh, I can only be so rude, I can only be so like this. But he says what a normal human being in that situation would say if they had these beliefs. Like, I don't agree with what he said, but I agree with the sense that if I hold a belief and I'm very pissed off in a certain scenario, I'm going to say it, and I'm not going to care what anyone says around me, because I'm not in a movie. And in that situation, they're not in a movie, and they would have said that in real life. And that's why it just struck hard home with me, because it's like, that's me. I know I wouldn't say anything racist, but if I was angry, I wouldn't care what people were thinking, and I would say what I wanted.
Also, like, the emotional moments where like the billboards are on fire, and then the son's just like, "Mom, stop," and she's like, "No," and then she's like, "This is all I have," or whatever she says, and it's just emotional moments like that.
It's just, I love it when they just create so many memorable moments for her. Like, you think that she's just going to explode at some points, and she never does. There's those moments where it's just like, when the last words to her daughter, "I hope you get raped too," and then the other bits where it's just she's in the car by herself, or just when she walks into the school and just beats the crap out of them. It's like, not like anger, it's just there's a calmness. It's just like she's accepted she's never going to get a kid back, but in the same sense, she will just get justice no matter what.
Yeah.
I completely understand why she won Best Actress.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there was never any doubt in my mind that it was hers from the beginning.
Yeah, she's such a strong performer and presence on screen. Like, yes, she has a lot of quippy one-liners and stuff like that, but she also brings a lot of heart and a lot of character to what otherwise could have been a pretty one-note character.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I was expecting going in, yeah.
It could just... I could see... before I saw it, I could imagine people saying, like, oh, the Mother Was One Note, it's just sad all the time. But no, it did have that big range and that big variety, and all that just helped make it as good as it was.
Yeah. It's, I think, a Best Picture contender where it's in the scenario where I wouldn't complain if it won, and it will be one of those nominees that we just look back on for years to come, not just from a technical level but from an emotion level, because I think years to come we will still connect to it and we will still just think, wow.
Couldn't agree more. A film that will definitely go down in the history books, not only because it's and broken so many records, but because of what it means in bringing a franchise to its head. And even though it does very much feel like a part 1 to a part 2, Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
This is, without doubt, not the best film I've seen this year, but the best cinematic experience I've seen. This is a crowd-pleasing film. It's the sort of film you go in with and you're cheering with the audience in those character moments. You're crying with the audience at that ending. You're walking out of the theatre, where the fuck do they go from this at the end? It was the beautiful thing. We all walked out. There were loads of us, of our friends.
Yeah.
We were all grabbing each other. We were like crying. We were shouting, "The cavalry is coming," or at least I was. And it's just, it really speaks just volume just to how powerful a film this is when it can have that level of impact on people, and how we can still months after be shocked by it.
And it balances these characters so well. I mean, Hawkeye was fantastic. I mean, Ant-Man was fantastic. But really, the way that it did balance all the...
Yeah, keep going.
Zack's looking at me.
I'm just giving him that face.
The way that it did actually balance these characters, where they didn't feel like they were just a repetition of the best hits of themselves. Like Peter Quill was, like, when he had that emotional moment and he ruined it when they finally had Thanos there, and he ruined it by acting on impulse. That is Peter Quill through and through. Yeah. That is who he is as a character. But really, this is Thanos' film, and Josh Brolin gives a fantastic performance.
Brolin for Oscars.
This is definitely the year of Brolin.
100%.
Like, it's not only his performance, but Thanos himself looked photorealistic. Like, he looked as good as Snoke. He looked as good as Caesar. Yes, agreed. Like, there were moments especially with Iron Man's suit, where it looked a bit dodgy, and some other bits where it looked a bit... that's not very great, especially considering the budget for this. I've been on record saying it's looked awful, Iron Man suits, since Iron Man 3, but that's a different point. But... side note, with Marvel's special effects lately with the CG, they seem to have really been fairly lackluster. Like, obviously it's a lot better than anything else, well, not anything else, but it's still really good for the most part. But there are a number of things, like, I feel like Marvel used to be like, CG's this new big thing, put loads of money into that, whereas now I think a lot of the money's going to the actors now, because it's like crazy amount that Downey Jr. earns. But they are sort of falling short a little bit on the special effects. There's only so much money. There's only so much money that you can put in different places. It's like, I need you here, I need you there. Yeah. Like, I need these actors, and Christ, they'll come with a paycheck. And it's a sad thing that you occasionally see it, but for the most part, these films look amazing. Oh, yeah. Like, there is that little shortcoming, but that's just what happens to the grind of any machine. When you think of how much CGI is actually in it, it's only like a negligible couple of percent that's not. You play your Xbox for so long, it's going to feel warm, and it's going to start to slow down a bit, and there's a reason for that. But it doesn't take away from how sensationally just impressive this film was. Do you want to deal with that, or do you want to keep going? Because it doesn't bother me. You can hear it on here. Okay. Doesn't bother me. But you say also about character earlier, in the sense that, like, they all get their moment in this film, the actors themselves. I've seen a lot of criticism in the sense that they're all just thrown in just because they need to be there.
But even then, they're doing all of them is doing something you've never seen them do before. Like they're playing the lone wolves, they're playing involved versions of their characters. I can grant you that not all of them need to be there, but at least when they're there, they do something different. They all try something. They all get their own character moment. Some of them are cut short, but they're all effective for the scene you get them in.
Infinity War, it made me realise as I was watching it, when Thanos was having the hand-to-hand with Iron Man, it made me realise that the effect that this had with knowing that anyone could die at a moment's notice, it brought the tension that much higher, where I actually had the effect that the filmmakers wanted and intended. Because in a lot of television and a lot of film, like even in other Marvel films, like say Captain America Captain America Winter Soldier, on the highway chase, and then when it then goes into hand to hand, it's tense and it's a fantastic sequence, but you don't feel like they could die, and then you're on the edge of your seat. Whereas here in Infinity War, you were actually on the edge of your seat because you were like, are they going to get it? And then when he impaled Tony, it's like,
yeah, we were all like, Christ,
it was a bit cheap with it's just the nanobot. Oh, it's just the nanobots that are fixing him or whatever. But I did think, wow, because normally it's just the logic in my head, it's only episode 2 of this series, so they're not going to die. Whereas here it was like, anyone could go. Also, that brings me to Loki. Obviously, fan favourite character, and it was his perfect time to go. But it was so early into the film, while I was invested, I was excited. I wasn't as emotionally as invested as I could have been. And it was sort of like, he's gone.
Whereas I was kind of the opposite, because it kind of like it really ramped up what this film was going to be for me. Like the level of like, you've had your like kind of like your popcorn movies with like Ragnarok. You've had your silly little ones with Homecoming that don't build that much of an effect on like the MCU as a whole. Like it's not an Avengers level movie, but where then that happens, that's a permanent death. It was like it kind of really spoke to me. Like this is the one. This is the one we pay attention to. This is the one where it's like, right, sit up. You're in a Marvel movie now, kids. This isn't some filler. This is the season finale.
That's an interesting way to look at it, actually, because I saw it as I wasn't invested, whereas you sort of, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, as well, we were all going in with like the predictions, like, right, who's going to die? It's going to be Cap. It's going to be Iron Man. It's going to be this guy. We were all wrong. All of us were wrong.
Every single person was wrong. There was about one crazy uncle at the back.
He said, they're all going to die.
Everyone. But I like how they have like the OG Avengers left.
Oh hell yeah! Like,
so
give them their chance.
That would be like their swan song in the next one, and then it will. Although with everyone who did die, I think the permanent deaths will be Loki.
Yeah, Loki will go.
Gamora.
Yeah. There's just no sense in bringing them back. It just doesn't work.
I hope they don't bring Vision back, because that was so beautiful.
His end, as much as it kills me because he's my favourite Avenger, his end was perfect, so we don't need him back in that way.
So I'd say those three are definitely...
Although we will see Gamora again if Guardians 3 does take place before Infinity War, like it's being rumoured to be.
Oh.
Which will be nice, because I did like... It did a little get to me when they had that kiss in the movie. It was like, they haven't earned this yet. If they'd earned that in Guardians 2, I'd be okay with it. So I need to see that in Guardians 3. I need that little moment where I think, they're okay. But, like, you've just fucked yourself into the ultimate corner, Marvel. Like, you can't advertise a single one of your next sequels. Oh, Spider-Man 2. Oh, Doctor Strange 2. But it's like, but they're dead. Oh, no, they're clearly not.
Tom Holland's there on Twitter, like, when people are like, see you soon as Peter Parker. And he's like, did you not see Infinity War? # I don't want to go. And it's like... You have been seen on set for Spider-Man Far From Home. Yeah. Young man, do not play this game with me.
Stop trying. Like, it was a very big, emotionally weighting moment when we were in the theatre, and it was like, holy crap, these people are gone. I've idolised these people. I've grown to love them in such a short space of time. Don't take them away from me. And yet, then when you walk out, it's like, they're fine. Not one of them's really gone. They're all right. Strange will be back. Peter will be back. As emotional as it was, it won't matter by the end of the next film.
Although... with the rumours of Guardians 3 taking place before Infinity War, and with almost at this point confirmed time travel for Avengers 4, do you reckon they're going to completely rewrite and undo everything that happened in Infinity War?
No, because it's just... There's a certain level of like it's no longer a comic book. You can't just do things like that. This is a movie. You've established tone and stakes. Like to undo it, it'll piss people off. And it's just it's like you've put me through this emotional gravitas of like seeing these people be killed. You've put me through that feeling, and it's like if to then say this was all for nothing, it's just a kick in the teeth to like, or what was the point in this outing then? Why did we do it?
Yeah. Although a moment that almost reminded me a bit of The Last Jedi, where they sort of hinted at being a character, but you're like, hang on, who are they bringing back here? And then they bring back Red Skull.
Yeah,
and it's
that
like that was not expected.
Yeah, that was a scary moment for me.
The accent, I was like, hang on, who's it going to be with that accent? And then they bring back Red Skull. And
it's like
because I'd seen pictures of Ross Marquand, and he like put it on Instagram saying how he's happy to be a part of this universe because he was at the premiere of Infinity War, and I was thinking, who's he playing?
That's gonna be a nothing part.
Yeah, but I'd not been paying attention to, like, I've been avoiding.
Oh yeah, we were like the plague.
Trailers and everything like that. I'd seen the first one, memorised that off by heart, just by the amount of time I've seen it. But with others, I made sure that I avoided it because although even by just seeing the first one, as I was watching the film, and this is another problem that with trailers. And how it affected my viewing of The Last Jedi. With the Infinity War trailers, while it didn't spoil anything, you were waiting for these shots, and in my head it was like a checklist of, oh yep, seen that, oh yep, seen that,
there it is.
Oh yep, seen that.
There it is.
And like with The Last Jedi, I had no clue Phasma was going to be in it because I avoided every single trailer. And so then when Phasma turned up, I was like, oh my god,
yeah, she's there, like
bloody hell. And then all my mates were like, yeah.
Yeah, Infinity War, it was kind of like, it was a embarrassment of riches in the sense that it's like, yeah, we know what's to come.
Yeah.
But I must raise this important point. Infinity War has beaten you down. It has upset you. It has taken from you the favourite characters that you have grown up with. Some of them you've probably idolised. You saw that Tom Holland as Peter Parker and you fell in love. Here, though, they establish hope for a new character in the most sensational way that I think has ever been done.
Here we go.
To just give a little icon that some people were just in the dark about, to then just, to those nerds like me that was sat in there, to just reveal that Captain Marvel is on the way was enough to make me scream. Jake will attest, when I walked out of that theatre, everyone was depressed. I was just hyped that Captain Marvel was on the way. It's probably my favourite superhero besides Superman. I read loads of Captain Marvel comics, fucking adore the character. So to know that
is the right choice.
To know that cavalry was on the way to save the day, all of you lot were depressed, you were upset, and I was just like, guys, they're going to be back within minutes because Captain Marvel is going to save them in this entire movie. Those little moments of just payoff, it kind of reminds me why I love these Marvel movies, in the sense that, yeah, you've just had these like beautiful, like brilliant character moments with the cast that you know and adore, and yet there's always something else up their sleeve. They're never fully finished, like there's more to come. And it just is the genesis of what Captain Marvel is going to bring to this. The sense of thrill and just happiness that I got with that one little logo, it's just going to take over the Marvel universe with how much they love her.
Although MCU films love them. But Zack raised the point with the TV shows. This was their chance to show them that they actually cared. Like, even if it was just as the destruction of the city was happening, it cuts to one of them, they're looking out the window, and then everyone will be like, oh my goodness, it's them. Yeah. I've spent time with them for a reason. Whereas, like, yeah, Jessica Jones is great, and all these series are all right. Iron Fist's awful. But it's not actually giving they're not interweaving, which is like the promise of Marvel, that it's this whole big thing, shared universe, and like the films always impact the shows, but the shows never impact the film. Yeah, they explain little details like with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this, like with the start of Age of Ultron, but you didn't need to have seen that for it to happen, whereas you need to have seen the films for the shows to work.
It was just a chance to just pay a little respect, almost, in that sense. It's like, even if just like they dropped the name Daredevil. It was like a little way of just saying to the fans, like, yeah, we understand you're never going to be in this movie, but we still care. We still care about you. Like, we know you're sitting for a show.
Even if at the end Fury was like in the credits scene, Fury was on the phone and he's like Murdoch, and then he then drops the phone or whatever, something like that.
Something that would have been just,
but
it would have brought a lot more weight to it for me. It would have made it a lot more better. But this film, I think, is the best for fan service ever.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you were an Avengers fan, like, there are moments in this film with score. I know, like, you and me, we just grabbed hands and it was like, it's coming! Like, that scene when they play the original Alan Silvestri theme when Cap is coming in, or that moment when Thor just arrives and he's like, bring me Thanos, and they play the original theme. It's the upbeat tone of it. It's just
scene, bring me Thanos.
Oh, it's just a crowd moment, and like we were cheering, like everyone was thrilled.
And as we said, this is an event. This is a cinematic event. This is the culmination of everything. You sit there and you cheer with people, you cry with people. It's like Star Wars when there was that big moment of Holdo, and it was just silent. There was someone in our screening who went really loudly, and everyone just laughed, and it just added to the moment because you were in there. You don't know these people. Well, you don't know most of these people, but just the impact is phenomenal.
In the sense that it can make strangers all come together and cry and cheer about a bunch of made-up people in a made-up world who do stupid made-up things. It just speaks to the power of not only this franchise, but cinema in general.
That's like how Hugh Jackman puts it. He's like, oh, I love it. I just get paid to play dress up.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Like, and there's just the effect this film has on people. Like, when we came out, we won't name names, but people were crying.
We won't name and shame.
Yeah, like, people were crying. And it's just, it goes to show, like, the level of just love that people hold for these characters, for this world that's been created over these 10 years of Marvel. And it pays off relentlessly when you can have that great of a connection to a character.
If when first saw Iron Man 10 years ago, they were like, it will be like this in 10 years, I'd have been like, no, piss off, mate. Yeah. But the amount that it has grown and the juggernaut that Marvel is now, it is earned. Like Kevin Feige,
without doubt, he's pushed through it.
They have their faults, they have their problems, but when it comes to stuff like this, they have earned it.
Kevin Feige makes the best Saturday morning cartoon ever. Literally.
He makes the Saturday morning cartoons for everyone, and it's like every one of their mums went to see this.
Oh, hell yeah. And it just says it as well when, if this is Kevin Feige's final thing with Marvel, if his contract is soon to end up,
they'll renew it.
If they don't,
he has built them an empire.
I know, he's built them an empire and he's likely to, but if they don't, it's like, where the hell does this man go next? And keep in mind, we will be following you with our money. Like, we will throw money at you to just save another franchise and turn it into Marvel. We will throw money at you to do what you do, Mr. Feige, because it works.
He will instantly pick up like a deal with Netflix or someone.
Oh, great!
Like, they'll just be like, yes, just give us.
People will
this.
like sell their souls to have Feige on their team. It's just like, because he just knows how to make it work.
People will turn to dust to have Feige on their team.
Dude, that was a bit too soon. People died in this movie. They're not coming back. I don't care what they say about Far, Far From Home. It's going to be a different character. It won't be Tom Holland. It'll be someone else. Although, I think we'll end it with this just one big criticism about the film. I was expecting someone that a love story had developed in these films. Something that I hoped we would receive payoff for. It was a character who was in the very first film even.
Oh no.
It was the little claw guy from Iron Man 1 who developed a partner in Iron Man 3, and you saw them being dragged away. They were going to be resurrected. Were they in this film? Two founding characters of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, probably in more movies than the likes of Falcon ever was. We'll do more for the characters in cast than Falcon ever could, because that's a shit useless character. Did we get these claw guys? No, we didn't. They were thrown aside. Mr. Feige,
shame on
reflect
you.
on your sins.
What I would argue, even worse than that, because before we went into the screening, Zack and I spoke. We're like, so, what surprise character? Because we'd heard there was a surprise character, ended up being Red Skull, that they brought back. Zack said the Claw. I said, from the very first Avengers, wasn't from the first Iron Man, wasn't a founding father, but it was a big, important character that holds a place in my dear heart. And that was the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent playing Gallagher.
Yes.
Where was he? I know after the fact that I think one of the Russos said
He did
indeed die. I'm not having that. If I didn't see it, it didn't happen, Mr. Russo. Who are you?
You've got money.
Who are you?
You've got money to make Team 4. You can at least show us the death of the Gallagher guy. It doesn't take much. You do it with a goddamn GoPro. It doesn't take much. Just release it on the internet. It'll be the most watched video ever.
Bring back the Marvel one-shots.
Just do it.
We need this. We have earned this.
We've
We
sat
have given
through-
you £1 billion.
We've sat through, what's it, 18 of these movies now? However many...
This is number 19.
This is number 19. We've sat through that many movies. You owe us this. You owe us. We've lined your pockets so you'll never have to spend any money ever again.
It is my birthright.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's been our review extravaganza for the show. We've got so many more films that we're likely to be talking about in the coming weeks.
Tons, absolutely.
Christ,
tons.
we've got new releases, we've got older films that we've been meaning to discuss, that we wanted to get off our chests, but these are just some of the big ones that we knew we could go on about for hours, and we thought we had to get these out of our system. Some of these we've especially waited for, just to be able to talk about on this platform. So, without further ado, we'll look back on what 2017 was for us.
Retrospective.
Exactly. So we're going to recall what for us were our best films of the year,
Our top 10 for 2017.
what defined cinema for us, what thrilled us, and what just made us love going to the movies. So we'll get into it. I think I've got really a bit of a diverse list for my top 10. Like, some of them will be expected because they were incredible, but some of them I think are smaller and they weren't liked by everyone. So here we go. At number 10, it was Ingrid Goes West. Number 9 was War for the Planet of the Apes. Number 8, it was Phantom Thread. Oh, I love that film. Number 7, it was Logan. Number 6, it was Dunkirk. Number 5, Call Me By Your Name. Number 4, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Number 3, A Ghost Story. Number 2, this will shock no one because I loved it to pieces and it broke me, a Mother. And then number 1, just a phenomenal fucking sci-fi film that I will be watching for at least another 20 years. It was Blade Runner 2049.
Woo!
Just if we go into it now, we'll be here all day. So let's hear what Jake had.
My top 10, a lot of it actually agrees with Zack. Before I get into the top 10, I just want to say a film that I feel like needs a bit more love from last year, Trainspotting 2.
Oh, hell yeah, definitely.
It was a
Really
brilliant
good.
continuation from the first. So this is essentially my number 11. It was a brilliant continuation from the first. And while it has been criticised for being too reliant upon the events and like too wrapped up in that, and this is a sequel, and the events of the first are so paramount in the rest of the lives for these characters. They are stuck in the events. Like, it has hit these characters so profoundly that they can't help but get away from it. And I feel like it was a fantastic sequel to the absolute classic of the first Trainspotting.
Yeah, I'll jump on that bandwagon as well and say one that really I believe does deserve more of a shout out and was a definite honourable mention for mine. That's The Big Sick. It's the best summer film I saw last year. Emotion, joy, sadness, comedy. I was laughing, I was crying my eyes out. This is 500 Days of Summer done 20 times better. It's the best story about love I've ever seen. Kumail Nanjiani, God among men, absolutely hilarious. Made me
Absolutely
feel
love
things
that
I've
bloke.
never felt before in a film. Ray Romano, one of the most surprising performances
The
I've ever
best
seen.
dude. He's
Jesus
like the dream
Christ.
dad.
Every single member of the cast in this film was Holly Hunter,
everyone.
on fire. Beautiful, emotional story that I think will hold up in years to come. And quite frankly, is important because it's setting a trend of what Kumail Nanjiani says. He's had to watch our movies and try and adapt to them. We should watch his movies now and be willing to adapt to them. So The Big Sick.
With The Big Sick, when I first put it on, I was like, I can't really see him as a romantic lead. 10 minutes in, I was sold.
You were gone.
Right. My number 10, War for the Planet of the Apes. This could have just been another generic action film, and just to end the trilogy. But instead it gave us a heart-wrenching and beautiful character piece to send off these rebooted films, and the crazy photorealistic effects.
Oh, hell yeah.
Breathtaking. Number 9, I'm Not a Witch. This was one of my favourite films of last year for many reasons. It's funny, it's sad, it has one of the best and interesting endings, and just the concept in general. Highly recommend I'm Not a Witch. Check it out. Number 8, Get Out. Everyone and their grandma's gone to see this, but I can't wait to see what Jordan Peele does next. Number 7, Killing of a Sacred Deer. This feels like a Stanley Kubrick film. This is the closest we're going to get to it, and it feels like Stanley Kubrick while standing out by itself and being its own entity, while not feeling like a rip-off. I mean, how do you eat spaghetti? Number 6, Mother, one of the most visceral and difficult films I've ever experienced. Seeing this in the cinema was a gift, and while I don't hurry out for rewatches, it's firmly stayed in my mind and has yet to let me go out of its grasp. Brilliant performances, and Darren Aronofsky. Molto bene. Number 5, Star Wars The Last Jedi / the director in The Jedi.
You can't include two. Young man.
Loopholes. There is so much to talk about and discuss and dissect with this one. Video essays galore. It would be my favourite Star Wars if it wasn't for Empire. Shows franchises taking risks, what we need more of.
Yeah. Number
4, Baby Driver. Fantastic fun. Edgar Wright's signature charm and style. My most rewatched of 2017. First Blu-ray I've pre-ordered. I bought loads of Blu-rays, but the first one I pre-ordered, I did it while walking home from the theatre.
Yeah.
Loved it. Number 3, the heart-wrenching Logan. This is saying goodbye to an icon. It's been built up for years. Goodbye, Mr. Hugh Jackman. You're going to be around, but fantastic as Logan.
And I'll say it, best comic book film of all time.
Agreed.
Fight me.
Under Spider-Man 2.
We'll get into that later.
Number 2, Zack's already said it on his, Call Me By Your Name. It's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Heart-wrenching. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing with your life? Number 1, Blade Runner 2049. Same as Zack's. Oh, you thought you were special. This is what science fiction can be. A sequel that honours the legacy of its predecessor while also being its complete own thing. Fantastic. Just
we had a lot of experiences at the cinema last year together, a lot of fun times, but none more than just this. Going to see it a day early was just a beautiful thing. Just watching that amazing Denis Villeneuve movie, and then just driving home and just talking about it for hours. We came in the next day, grabbed each other, we're talking about it again. It was just a life-changing film, akin to what the original Blade Runner did.
See, to see Blade Runner 2049 early, we went to the dodgier local cinema, and I didn't care that it smelled of piss. I didn't care that there were police sirens going off outside.
It was beautiful.
I was so immersed in this beautifully broken world.
Like, I was ready to scream "fuck you" at the credits because I wanted more.
Denis Villeneuve, Roger Deakins, everyone involved.
Give yourselves a pat on the back.
Pat on the back with all the money you should have earned and the Oscars you should have received. But Roger Deakins, well done, good sir. Well done.
We don't deserve you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the review extravaganza for Sour Popcorn, and we are back.
We're back, baby.
Like, we hope to be bringing weekly content to you. We hope to be returning to our standard structure for next week. So we'll be talking the news. We'll be bringing back the quickfire question. You'll be hearing what we got in the bargain bin over the week. And you'll be hearing our recommendations. We'll have a recommendation in a moment. But before we go, we just want to say that we hope to return to our standard format. We hope to be bringing you weekly content. You can also expect to see other content from us. Short films, video essay, direct commentaries. You can expect a lot from us this summer. We hope to be bringing it to you, and even then when we reach uni, we hope to be making this something, a platform that we can continue, maybe even bring other people in on, because we just want to be able to bring this to as many people as we can, make this an interesting panel on which to discuss a film with which we are obsessed. So, we'll move quickly into the recommendations we're going to make for this year. There were 2017 films that were underlooked, that didn't perform well, and that obviously at times didn't really get the platform they needed to make the noise they wanted. For me, that's Mudbound.
Oh, of course.
Oscar nominated. I know it was on Netflix, but no one watched this. This was an incredible film about race. If you hadn't told me this was on Netflix, I would have given this like the notion that it was a full big budget blockbuster. It was fantastically made, well shot, instantly well performed. I would have given the Oscar to any member of the cast. And just what it said about race, and just the fact that it made me hate actors that I once loved and love actors that I once hated.
Yeah.
This is a film that will go down as an important one, but also as one of the best historical period films I've ever seen.
And Mike Ehrmantraut does more than just a frown.
Oh, hell yeah. He beats a black man to death.
Fantastic film. Completely recommend. The one that I'm doing is a 2018 release, but it hasn't been seen by nearly enough people. It is another Netflix one, and this is indeed a sour popcorn first. I'm recommending a stand-up comedy show.
Oh.
Behind every joke, there is indeed a story. Hannah Gadsby's Nanette. Breathtaking. Not only is it an hour of laughs, it ends on such a poignant and hard-hitting note. I was watching it, listening to the comedy. I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. And then it just hits you. And it gives you the message that everyone needs to hear. And this stand-up show is a dissection of comedy. It's saying why Hannah feels like she needs to bow out of comedy. This is a sad saying goodbye, but it is beautiful. It is a fantastic 1 hour 15 minutes that I cannot recommend enough. More people need to see this. It's on Netflix. Just watch Hannah Gadsby's Nanette.
Son, I am that excited to see this because I'm desperate to get more into stand-up comics. I will go and watch this tonight.
Do it. It will hit you so hard.
I'm looking forward to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for potential listeners. We thank you for your time. This has been a bloody long one, but it was one we had to get off our chests, and one that we were just happy to make given the long hiatus.
Yeah. We're back, baby. We're back.
You can expect next week in-depth reviews on not only Netflix's amazing original Cargo, but
Fantastic.
quite frankly, the best horror film I've seen in maybe the past 5 years, and that is Hereditary. Join us next week when we'll be discussing that.
Thank you, and good night.
And in the words of Charlie Brooker,
go away. I have something that's been weighing on my mind for a while now. In the Snowy Popcorn episode, I did indeed report that Ben Affleck was stepping down as Batman, and I'd like to apologise for the fake news, for misinforming our fans that we don't know if he's down or not, but Ben Affleck has indeed stated, yep, something's bleeding. But I'd like to apologise for saying that it was a mistake.
no one can see my face, but I'm at this point just sighing. I don't care about Ben Affleck at all. If this has kept you awake at night, then I question you and your love for that man
nights.
quite a lot.
Sleepless nights.
Good grief.
Oh yeah. Good thing about it being on Netflix is...
Hello, boys. You're just being a troll now, doggo. Oh no, I can't say doggo. I meant to say dog. I can't say doggo.
Why can't you say doggo?
Because it's against my religion. I'm just against it. Do you know what I've just realised? They're essentially the raptors from Jurassic Park. They know how to open the doors. Like, I get the doors, Elliot. God.
I'll have a dream and then I'll just have Keats go, Alan.
Have you seen? He's now in every Honest trailer, and it's perfect. He was in the Purge one as well.
Oh, for God's sake.
You know the guillotine?
Yeah.
He's in that. It's the head they've edited. It's like, Alan.
Right, sorry dogs, I'm going to have to kick you out.
Go on.
Go on, dogs.
We apologise for technical difficulties. Canine infestation has become a regular problem on the Sound Popcorn podcast.